Good evening, everyone. I call this meeting to order. Apologize for a delayed start. We were dealing with some technical audio-video issues. I'm going to ask Board Member Slingloff, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight? Thank you. We'll now observe a moment of silence. Thanks. Now I'm going to ask Board Member Fields, will you read off the mission of Suffolk Public Schools?
The mission of Suffolk Public Schools is to produce 21st century learners that will become productive citizens in society, foster a dynamic, safe, and nurturing learning environment, partner with school community for the benefit of students and staff, strengthen the school division by employing a highly qualified and diverse staff, effectively and efficiently manage capital and human resources, effectively communicate to increase community investment.
Thank you, Ms. Fields. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Chair, I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All right, motion was made by Vice Chair Howell to approve the agenda, seconded by Board Member Slingloff. Any discussion? Being none, Madam Clerk.
Board members, please vote. Board Member Dr. Brittingham?
Yes.
Board Member Fields?
Yes.
Board Member Jenkins?
Yes.
Board Member Riddick?
Yes.
Board Member Slingloff?
Yes.
Vice Chair Howell?
Yes.
Board Chair McGee?
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right, we have no citizens on the agenda to speak. Next, we're going to turn the floor over to Superintendent Dr. Gordon for his proposed budget for the 26-27 school year.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. I'm going to move down to the podium. I will be joined by our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Wendy Forsman, to present the budget. Yes, thank you. Good evening, school board members. This is our annual presentation of the superintendent's proposed budget. I want everyone to, just as a reminder, that we actually started this process when school started in the first week of September, after we got a week underneath our belt. It's basically a 5-month process for us to be able to get to this point. We have, as a part of our budget calendar, to ensure that there will be public comment by our school community at the next meeting, hopefully an approval by the school board at our second meeting in March at the end of the month, and then by law, the City Council must appropriate funds to all localities by May 15th of each year. So I wanted to be able to share a quick recap of that timeline, and so that everyone will basically know what will happen over the next 2 months. So here's going to be our agenda for today. We actually have kind of divided our budget up into 2 parts based on the conversations we've had with you all over 2x2s, as well as our staff meetings. Our return on investments is going to show what has happened when Suffolk Public Schools has been properly funded over the last couple of years. We're going to tie this directly to our strategic plan, Destination 2028. We will want to be able to address some of the proposed budget challenges, mainly dealing with inflation. And then I'm going to turn some things over for her final budget presentation to you all. Ms. Wendy Forsman is going to give you an overview and a structure of the budget book. You will be receiving your budget books by the clerk and assistant clerk tonight. And then also she will give you a breakdown of the proposed budget by category. So when it comes to our return on investments, you all understand about the improvements that we've done in infrastructure under our current administration. And we believe that in working with our school counseling department, Dr. King, who works under Dr. Brown, providing more opportunities for our kids have led to this increase in scholarships that you see of $32.3 million in the last 4 graduating classes. We are all familiar with the lab school, the STEM Academy at Booker T. Washington, and our nationally recognized Project Lead the Way Biomedical at Lakeland, Project Lead the Way Engineering at Nansemond River High School, That is leading us to be able to want to develop the first sustainable K-12 STEM model in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Even today, Dr. Neighbors sent out more information as a lot of our students were recognized for their fine and performing arts performances from the Suffolk sister cities. And Mr. Cavler emailed the group to let us know that we now have 2 female state champions in wrestling as of yesterday. So when we're having these investments in our athletics and fine and performing arts, you can see how our students are really progressing and being a lead in everything that they do. Working under Dr. Brown, our Chief of Administrative Services, the school board administration have worked collectively in order for us to improve our safety measures. Once again, Suffolk Public Schools is the only school division in all of Region 2 that actually has 3 levels of safety staff with our S3 school security officers and school resource officers. So besides keeping our kids safe, educating them in student achievement is always going to be at the highest. And we always understand about our graduation rate, 93.2%. That is outstanding. We've made gains there. And within that 93.2%, we also have had a 16% increase in our honor graduates. Our honor graduates will actually start off with the class of 2026. You will see them at our next board meeting. As a part of our RI, under Ms. Dickens, our communications and community engagement, we wanted to make sure that we were telling our own story about everything and all the great work that was happening in Suffolk Public Schools. This is why we've asked our schools to do the same thing as we've been modeling that behavior from the division level, increase in our digital and print platforms, covering some of our new safety procedures. You all saw the press release. You all saw the social media releases on all of our platforms. As an example, we went to the clear bag policy. And the drones that are being run by Mr. Chirac and Mr. Thomas covering a lot of our school construction projects. You've seen the progress that we've had at John F. Kennedy Middle School. And we're about to have some new features going to come out on the expansion project at Northern Shores Elementary School. All of this ties in into ensuring that our kids come to school every day as we are consistently fighting chronic absenteeism. Our SPS pharmacy for our staff in order to be able to save money, and the overall focus on our SPS wellness program under the leadership of Ms. Ann McCoy. Under Dr. P. Shawn, our early childhood education, she let me know I was saying the wrong number for several meetings. 442 students, which has been an increase by 84 students over the last couple of years. And there's some bills in the General Assembly that may impact that, but based on the feedback that Dr. P. Shawn has mentioned, we think that we're going to be okay. So here are the common themes from the stakeholder input. This is conversations and communication with you all as a school board. This is the requests that are coming from our staff. This is from things that we've had in talking with our community members. These 3 main categories of staff raises, we put that in green because we are thrilled to announce that for every year that I have been here, the Suffolk Public Schools staff will now also receive an additional raise. An additional focus on safety, and because of the Virginia Literacy Act, especially the expansion going through the middle school level this year, a continued focus on student achievement and literacy. So as we tie this directly to our strategic plan, we're going to start off with student achievement. Those first 2 positions that you see there, Division L coach, Division Literacy coach, that was originally a part of the All-In grant, which expires on June 30th, 2026. As we know, there are always things that are coming out of the General Assembly that are what we call unfunded mandates. But we've seen the impact of having these positions, especially with our English language learners that are the fastest growing population, not only in Suffolk, but in the Commonwealth of Virginia. The STEM instructional staff, those 13 positions, that ties directly to Booker T. Washington Elementary School. Even though Old Dominion University is the fiscal agent for the lab school grant covered stipends for the staff, professional learning, furniture, and equipment. It did not cover staff. We had 2 of our staff members that were from other schools that applied to be part of this pilot at the program. We hired 4 staff members from outside, and we also had a special education teacher too. This also included a teacher assistant at every grade level. But as the year goes on, we basically had to make some moves because of the K-3 initiative and changes in the total number of kids per grade level. In some of our schools, such as Oakland and Southwestern, we had easy fixes where teachers would move from one grade level to the other. But in some of our other schools, we had to add some positions. And we are also hearing that there's a strong chance that lab school funding will not be in the next budget. So we don't want to have to wait and be reactive on that. We're going to be proactive now in ensuring that we have the total number of vacancies that are required to fill all of our positions at the elementary level in SPS without potentially having to move staff around. English and math teachers that you see, that's 2 of them. That's going to actually be targeted for John Yates Middle School. I'm not sure if you all have seen the new developments that are popping up around John Yates Middle School. There's one about 500 yards down the road, 200 plus homes. And having conversations with Mr. Smith, we're seeing that some of his honors classes are actually over 30 students. So in order for us to be proactive, we want to be able to add, especially because it's English and math, 2 teachers at the middle school level there. Saturday Academy and tutoring were also part of the All-In grant. The board has worked collaboratively with the Teaching and Learning Department under the leadership of Dr. Branch to ensure that we have additional support ready for our kids. We want to be able to continue those programs since student achievement is a high fixture of what we're trying to do. You see a dean at Turlington Woods School. We've had some conversations about the enrollment fluctuations that we see. Also, anytime that Mr. Bynum is out, we're actually pulling an administrator from another school to be able to cover that. And because of some of the serious behavioral challenges that we're seeing at the elementary level, we've kind of earmarked some space if we were going to take a move into that area to be on the opposite side of the building to potentially have some elementary alternative placements. If that is the case, we're going to be able to be proactive in adding a dean, which is a teacher's salary in SPS at Turlington Woods School. We also have a couple of our schools that have their enrollment has increased over 750 students. Anytime that we reach that metric as our rubric, that actually triggers additional clerical support and help. We had a clerical person that was actually itinerant, meaning they were working at multiple schools. We're going to add 1 clerical person so that person no longer has to be itinerant. And you guys have already heard me talk about the Virginia Literacy Act and how it has expanded into the middle school level. It is now a K through 8 mandated by the Commonwealth of Virginia. As we tie this to climate and culture, Pick My Kid is our platform for our arrivals and departures. The mandated state raise of 2%. This came out of Governor Youngkin's budget when he presented it to the state and everyone on December 17th. This is one of those occasions that occurs every 4 years where the outgoing governor leaves a budget for the incoming governor. So everything that we're talking to you all about today, everything that's being presented is based off of Governor Youngkin's budget. We will continue with that until we see final changes potentially coming out of the General Assembly. Improving transportation paid by 11%. I think we all know we have focused on this for several years. We're happy to have this increase again. The Transportation Department has actually had the largest increases out of any employee group in SPS since we've been here. I'm going to give a special shout out to the Employee Association of Suffolk, who actually worked with the Bus Driver Association to be able to bring Dr. Brandon and I to their meetings. Increasing that pay by 11%, this means that down their average pay would be $21 an hour. Student IDs, you all heard Dr. Brown's presentation on star cards. Thank you to Ms. Mooney and Dr. Doyle at Southwestern and Forest Glen for piloting the program that is now being used at all of our schools. That was just phase 1 for the GPS on the buses. We also now are looking at some additional things that we can do, such as student purchases, attendance. We think that now that all of our kids are used to having the star cards, we want to be able to have additional phases that we will add on. The phase in the middle school athletics, Mr. Riddick and I have been working on this for about 5 years. This is middle school baseball and softball. We have had great communication from some of our other associations, especially in the northern part of Suffolk. But ladies and gentlemen, we were going to do a phase-in model with this because it's going to be our plan to start this in the fall, which probably more than likely is going to mean this is going to be at the intramural level. This will also help us to generate interest. This will also allow Mr. Cabler to work with our middle school principals and middle school athletic support staff for the backstops, the portable mounds, the dugouts, the equipments, the uniform. And it's going to be our goal for our middle school kids to be able to play softball and baseball at our high school fields, which is also a reason why we're going to do this in the fall so that it does not conflict with the high school spring sports baseball and softball schedule. Lastly on the slide, the allocation for Watchdog Dads. We all know this program got a lot of great publicity at Florence Bowser Elementary School. You know, it's always going to be our goal to try to have as many male role models in our schools, especially at the elementary level. Now we're proud to announce that we have the Watchdog Dads program in 9 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and 1 high school. Another great opportunity for our community to volunteer and support our schools. We want to keep that program going. So as we transition to human and fiscal resources, once again, mandated 2% state raise. Our starting teacher salary is $60,000. We are proud of that amount. That is something that we know that we have, I think we're 2nd in the region currently in doing that. That's going to be for everyone that is coming in fresh out, step 0. The 2% raise will be for everyone after step 1. We also have this huge budget challenge that I think all of you all have seen and probably felt, and that is inflation. I think I'm gonna say it one more time, inflation, all right? That doesn't change when it comes to the operations of a school division, especially when you're talking about an organization that has $250 million budget. The inflation increases we're seeing across the board. Some of this is based on tariffs, some of this is just based on overall costs. But a great example that we share with the staff is that our great director of technology, John Littlefield, has informed us that Chromebooks themselves have increased $75 to $100 each. Doesn't even matter if you buy them in bulk. So we can use that as an example of some of the challenges that Ms. Forsman's team is working on, especially based on the departmental requests. Again, that bus driver raise, we want to highlight that. $21 an hour is very good. Ms. Forsman actually studies what corporate America is paying too. So now we believe that we're competitive when it comes to our transportation wages. Also, the increased budget for attorney contractor services. This is a continuation of what the board approved last year. As we know, Mr. Waller has been with us, I believe, now for 37 years, and even though he handles the majority of our legal services, there are going to be times where we need to be able to subcontract out, working with VACO, our insurance provider, for additional support. We added some funds to that budget line last year. We're going to add more funds to that budget line this year. Across the nation, there has been an increase, especially when it comes to special education, advocacy, and complaints that is creating more need for legal services. As we transition to community engagement and communication, as you all know, we highlighted this in one of our good news reports. Ms. Dickinson's team won 6 awards as presented by the National School Public Relations Association. And because we asked our principals and department leads to capture all of the great work that's going on within the school division, this means there's going to be an increased demand, which is why we've added an additional printer technician in the print shop. A couple of years ago, we transitioned over to our Just FOIA software that not only provides a timestamp when all requests that come in, they also send reminders of when those requests are due. If you haven't checked out our new website, it was K-12 Insight. They rebranded. They are now called OnFlow. Check out some of the small videos that kind of capture a lot of the great things that are happening in our school, especially some of those student images, especially the engagement that you're seeing in the classroom. Ms. Dickens has it kind of set up that you can see like 4 or 5 of our schools at a time, but also has been very, very popular with that Let's Talk and Chat feature that really allows us to ask questions that comes to one of our staff members to give answers back. New software programs, this includes our increased translation communications. Again, ladies and gentlemen, our English language learner population is the fastest growing, and folks, it is a lot more than Spanish. We have dozens of languages now being spoken in Suffolk Public Schools. So this history of teacher raises, I actually put this slide up here every year because I never want to lose track of where things were. If I was to go back to 2020, February 2020, and did my first presentation to you all then, I believe the starting salary was right around $42,600. So you can see right now that $60,000 is going to be for step 0. The cost of living adjustment is also going to be included because we have that for those folks at the top of the scale. But a 17% increase over 5 years. We are currently ranking 2nd in the region. And I know how this works. We always do our budget presentation as one of the last in Region 2 on purpose. Because last year, one of our colleague school divisions, when they saw that we outpaced them, they actually called a special meeting to try to increase their salaries. It didn't work. We were 2nd in the region. We want to continue to make sure that we can at least be in the top 3. And as a reminder, that 2% proposed increase begins after step 0. So as we get down to this, for the budget challenges themselves, going back to Governor Youngkin's proposed budget, it is a minimal increase. Basic aid, a little over $440,000. That increase in net of compensation is a supplemental decrease itself. So when you take a look at it, this total state funds increase is only 1.56%. Ladies and gentlemen, that does not cover inflation. That does not cover our raises. And we still have the Virginia Literacy Act mandate. And as a reminder, the all-in grant, that was some good money that we were able to do some great things to move things off of operational funds onto the grant. All of that stuff expires on June 30th, 2026. And that money's already been allocated. Remember, that was Saturday Academy, that was tutoring. It's already been mapped out and allocated. Dr. Branch has been meticulous about making sure that we follow all the guidelines from the state. So, again, those budget challenges, safety, inflation, right? Even the metal detectors that we purchased, a while ago, they cost a little bit more money as well. Facilities, maintenance, and supplies. I'm going to pause there for a second. As we all know, we had a preventative maintenance budget in the past for $3.575 million. $75,000 of that was for asbestos abatement. We actually repurposed, that was the word that was used, right? We repurposed that money in order to be able to do the Northern Shores expansion. $14 million was repurposed. You all put in a request for our preventative maintenance money to be at $7 million over 2 consecutive years to get that money back. In the CIP that was approved by the city yesterday, it was $4 million, starting the year after next. So when you get the year-end list from Mr. Napier and Ms. Forsman, and we're talking about these things that have to occur, like us replacing all 3 of our high school tennis courts, $2 million. We displaced our high school tennis teams this year. Thank you to Nancy and Suffolk Academy. Thank you to Parks and Recreation for being able to work with us. But we can't fix those courts anymore. We've put a Band-Aid on them for a very long time. So in the past, when we've had that preventative maintenance money and year-end spending, those were the things that allowed us to be able to fix some things. Remember, Mr. Riddick and Ms. Jenkins will tell you, the very first thing I spoke about my first budget is we have to improve the infrastructure of Suffolk Public Schools. We are at this crossroads when it comes to that right now. So as you're taking a look at some of the things that Ms. Forsman and Mr. Napier are going to present to you all at the March 12th meeting, the email that I sent to you all yesterday that kind of gave you a 20-year overview of major items that need to be repaired on the CIP, and some of the other information I'm going to share with you all tomorrow, please keep the inflation of facilities, maintenance, and supplies at the forefront. I've talked to you all already about the software costs, but I got to pause and talk about the fringe benefits. We know that health insurance has gone up a lot. A lot. We've seen the stories of one of our colleague school divisions where a lot of the staff was upset because of the increasing fringe benefits actually took away from the raise that they were getting. Well, in Suffolk Public Schools, we're going to absorb almost all of that cost because we are adamant about ensuring that our staff can see the raises that we're presenting to you all tonight and a difference in their paycheck. So now I'm going to transition over to why all those things occurred, why they must continue. This is the financial sustainability. Our tutoring programs before and after school, Saturday Academy, remember, both of those were previously on the all-in grant. We're putting them on the operating budget this year. Division-wide literacy coach has to continue. Remember, that's the Virginia Literacy Act. Summer school beyond remedial state money. Suffolk Public Schools is proud that we do not charge our families to go to summer school. Proud that we do that. But we all must remember the state does not give us the money to do that. They only give a portion of the summer school funds. So we want to continue to operate with that. Mr. Wagner, our coordinator of auxiliary programs under Dr. Branch, he's in charge of that. They already are planning summer school, taking a look at the courses based on student performance that need to be offered. Canvas, the learning management system. This was created in 2020, purchased by the state. That's our learning management system that is the basis for our virtual learning. It's the basis for our remote learning. This is where our teachers put their activities, their lesson plans. This is how people can communicate. It is not in the budget at the state level. So school divisions are actually bracing to see if they will have to pay for Canvas. This will be one of those expenses that potentially could be unexpected. And Canvas is good. It's very good. So I know a lot of lobbying has taken place to get this added to one of the education bills so that school divisions don't have to take on that cost. And again, the literacy curriculum and materials is the Virginia Literacy Act. STEM, K-12 instruction. We're looking at 2 middle schools for our STEM middle school model. More on that later. Again, increased safety and security. Mr. LaFay has been working on a grant for some things for a behavioral specialist. The city is also going to be partnering with the grant for school resource officers. We are continuing to have that conversation with interim city manager, Mr. Hughes, as well as Chief Bowie. We need 11 elementary SROs next year. We have 6 right now that are splitting. We need all 11 next year. The Division L coach, remember, that's the English language learners, our fastest growing population. Middle school athletics, baseball and softball. and maintaining all facilities, including athletics. When you all approved the HES contract, that's one of the best things y'all ever did. Because now our schools are consistently cleaned. Now we don't have to worry about our coaches cutting the grass. See, it's all part of this plan where we put the synthetic fields in at the high school level, have our third-party provider here now taking care of the grass. Our custodians are happy because they don't have to do it. But if we're going to phase in middle school athletics with this focus on baseball and softball, we're going to also ramp up how our fields were looking. You know, our middle school coaches did a great job, but do you know that some of them were trying to actually go and cut their fields and trim their stuff on their planning periods? That's not what they're being paid that stipend for. So we're going to expand our partnership with HES to include that, so it's more than just the front of the buildings. It's more than just the practice fields. Our stuff is looking a lot better, and we think that the stuff that we've already done, you know, at all of our schools, now we can expand to these athletic fields too. We think that's going to be the next step. So that is my narrative and story. Now I'm going to turn it over to the expert to give you all the numbers. Wendy Forsman, our Chief Financial Officer.
Yeah, I'll do it. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Good evening. So what we're going to talk about first is the structure of the budget book. I know that we talked about it a little bit last year, but I think it's important for the public and for you to hear again that organizational information and legal requirements is the very first thing you see in the book. The executive summary gives you a high-level overview of the changes and what are the new things in the book, what is the raise, how many people we're adding, what is it based on, what are the requests of the city, and what is the state money. Then there'll be expenditures by program, and so every single program in the book has all the expenditures laid out. You can see them clearly by operating costs and then personnel cost and benefits. And then there's a glossary of terms at the end for folks that don't speak English language for schools, because schools have their own language, as you know. So we have to provide that because there are a lot of acronyms, a lot of things that we talk about that people do not understand. The titles on each page of the programs tell you what category of the state it's in. Okay, so the state has 7 categories: instruction, instructional support. They have administration, health, transportation, facilities, information technology, and food nutritional services. So that title tells the public, tells the reader, what part of the state's categories are those expenses included in. The expenditures are placed by category, state defined in the book. So it may be that you see something on a page and you're like, why is that there? It's because the state requires us to report it there. So we try to keep it as close to the state reporting as possible so that when we report it to the state, if someone looks at the state reports, they're seeing the same numbers or close to the same numbers. At the end, it's broken down further by level, so you'll see pages that say elementary, middle, high, alternative ed, CCAP. Those are all consolidated on the very first page of that program, and that's where you will see the total expenses for that program. But we like to break it down elementary, middle, and high, and then further to alternative ed and CCAP if we can. At the very end, you'll see a non-departmental items. That's not miscellaneous. What that is expenses that are split over all the departments after they happen each year, because we don't know which people are going to retire from which programs, so it's hard to budget it at that program. The same thing with workman's comp. You don't know at the beginning of the year where you're going to spend your workers' comp, so what you do is you allocate it out over all the programs once you have the expenses. That's at the very end of the book. Each program has 3 columns. An actual column, which is the actual expenses as of June 30th of 2025. So that's what we actually spent in those programs, in those object codes last year. Okay, so if you looked at last year's reports, you should see those same numbers. There may be a couple of exceptions where we made some audit adjustments once we got into the audit, but for the most part, they're all the exact same numbers from those reports. The revised column, which shows you where our budget sits today, things got moved around, things have happened, people have asked for changes. We've already done that, that's in your revised column. And then the proposed column, which are the current numbers that we're proposing. And then finally, there's an increase, decrease that looks at the difference between the revised and the proposed column. As you know, we are people heavy. We are supposed to be. That is the nature of our business. So 84.05% of our operating budget is salaries and benefits. Benefits are dictated, the rates are dictated by the state, and of course, our health care. The operating costs are 15.95%. So what does that look like? Well, if the operating budget is $225.6 million and salaries and benefits are $190 million, there's $35.9 million left over. And what is that $35.9 million? Well, let me give you some ideas. It's things like the water and sewer and electricity, the fuel to keep the buses on the road, insurance, software, materials and supplies, professional development, school allocations, textbooks, facility maintenance contracts, copier maintenance contracts, ground services, and consultant services. All of the things that keep our buildings open and insured, and all the materials for students, all the allocations is in that $35.9 million, which per student isn't a whole lot of money. So the governor's proposed budget gave us $2 million, 1.56% increase. However, as you see the note here, it does not cover the raises given in the 24-26 biennium, but it's supposed to cover it. And let me tell you why. The state benchmarks cost of education every 2 years when they do a new biennium. This is a new biennium. They benchmarked off 2023. So it didn't include the new biennium raises that they gave. So when they did the cost of education, it was lower than those raises. And let me show you on the next slide. You can see here that basic aid current year is $59.9 million. The compensation supplement for those two raises was $4.6 million for $64.6 million. The proposed budget, basic aid, is $63.4 million, which is great, 3.5 higher, right? Almost that 4.6. However, the compensation supplement dropped to the 2%, and they took away $3.1 million. So the difference between the two of those is $445,516, which, as you know, does not cover the raise. Okay? In addition to that, there were other things that raised up and lowered in the revenue. So I want to make sure I talk about those a little bit. Sales tax went up $555,000. But the state changed the way that we have to do the benefits and put the expenses on school divisions for the hybrid folks. And so they lowered the benefits portion that they usually give us by $687,000. So there's a negative of $187,000 or so. The SPED department for special education received more money, which has to go directly to them, cannot be used for raises, has to go directly to the special education department. The at-risk was given an extra $1 million to help cover the at-risk stuff, so that's in the at-risk, and you'll see that in their budget. And then pre-K went up a small amount. So we had to we have to be in compliance with all those programs, so it has to go to those programs and not necessarily to the raise. So you can see why I'm just using basic aid and compensation supplement to talk about the raise. So to get to our budget this year, the financial sustainability for current programs that Dr. Gordon has talked about extensively this evening, the mandated raise, the increased cost of operations, we're going to request of the city $7 million. And so that brings our total request to $88.1 million. The proposed budget looks like this. You can see that we actually spent $227.2 million in 24-25. Our current budget this year, and very important to note, the current budget this year with the extra appropriation for the buses, remember that, what we just had, is $248.6 million, and the proposed budget is $250 million. So if you try to do the math just off of that, not realizing that that other appropriation is in there, you're going to say, well, gee, that's only $7 million. You got to add that 1.7 because we won't get that money again. That's one-time money. So let me show you what you can do to see that, and we put this in here specifically for you and the public to understand. If you take the $218.2 million of our operating budget and you subtract that appropriation of 1.7, you get the $216.5 million that you guys adopted last year. The proposed budget is $225.6, and the difference is that $9 million that we're talking about. Again, that 1.7 is one-time money. You can't include that when you're talking about your budget increase. State mandated raise is 2% inclusive of the step, and what that means is the base pay for teachers and others who have educational supplements will go up by 2% inclusive of their step. So if they're on step 3, they'll go to step 4, and the difference will be 2%. And then you add the education supplement to that. So that's how that will work. For support staff, it'll be the same. Their base amount, it doesn't generally always include education supplement, but what you'll do is you'll take them from step 3 to step 4, and the difference will be 2%. Once you get above step 20 on all scales, there's another 0.5% given, and that we didn't include here because that's part of their step. But basically, that's what the raise is inclusive of. The new scale for the drivers, that's the only change, different to the 2%, is theirs is 11%. So they start at 21%, and they go up 1% per step all the way up to their, I think it's 34 their scale ends at. So it'll go from like 21 to $28 or $29 per hour. Top of the scales, employees will receive the COLA portion only, which is about 1%. So here are the additional positions. We listed them out here for you so that you could see each area, as Dr. Gordon has talked about, so I won't read these to you, but you can see all the way down to the contracted vacancies, which I will discuss with you. Contracted vacancies are our employees who left Suffolk Public Schools, and as you remember, we have HES, which resources new employees for us, and there were 19 of those in the last year. Okay, so we take those out of the budget in FTEs and in salaries and compensation, and we put that down in purchase services so that we can pay that difference in that contracted amount. But what we're getting for that is not just an employee. We're also getting training for that employee. They're getting an opportunity to move up. They're also purchasing for us as part of this contract all equipment that we need, so we're not having those expenses to have to come up with. And it's expensive. Those pieces of equipment are expensive. And they're also providing the training on that equipment as well. So they've also given us 3 area supervisors that are part of that contract. So instead of one man trying to do 100+ employees at 21 or 26 different locations, right? You've got 3 area supervisors that are managing it, which is why our schools are cleaner and why they're looking better. So that is an important part and component of this. So the difference after you add everything together and subtract that 19 is 0.2 FTE increase over the course of the entire budget. This is what the operating fund looks like with a 3.36 increase. 60% of our funds coming from the state, 39% coming from the city, and then the federal revenue and other funds make up just barely 0.48 and 0.23 of the budget. When we look at by program, and these are the 7 areas, you can see here that 72.54% goes to instruction and instructional supports. And then our attendance and administration is 2.23, up just slightly because we added that attendance specialist, if you remember, last year into the budget, which made it go up slightly. You can see that facilities is at 10%, food nutritional services at 4.22, technology at 4.42, people transportation at 4.81, and health and psychology at 1.53. If you look at this based on compensation, the compensation increase is $3.6 million. That includes all of the raises. It includes the bus driver's salary increases, their new scale, plus the additional positions at 1.4. The benefit cost increase is 1.2. Some of that benefit increase is from, of course, 2% raise, so your FICA goes up and those kinds of things. A lot of it is from your health insurance increase. So we're not immune to these double-digit health insurance increases. And when you have a self-funded program like we do, if you have a very bad year or you have a year where it's a lot of heavy expense, you have to make sure you can cover that because it's only going to go up from there. So our pharmacy has helped tremendously. We are nowhere near what other school divisions are, but it had to go up. The other part of that increase for benefits is the portion that I was telling you that the state pushed off on school divisions for the hybrid employees. A year ago, when we made our payment to the state, we made a flat payment for just the portion of the salaries we were required to. They've changed that. Now we have to make that payment, plus we have to match what the hybrid employees put in theirs. So we're now responsible for that expense. So and they're auto-escalating it on our employees every quarter. So it is something that is going to go up. So then the subs, the part-time, the stipends, all of those netted together equal $251,595 for the total compensation of $6.679935. So 6.6, almost 6.7 million. I won't read these slides to you, but I did want you to see what was going up in each area. So for purchase services, this is what's going up for instruction. For legal services, as you know, it's the contracted attorney services. For the Office of the Superintendent, it was an increase for SOL real-time data analysis. For health services, the AED contract increased. For maintenance, is increased to the maintenance contracts, which include bleachers and playground inspections, pest control, HVAC systems, stormwater ponds, fire marshal changes that they're requiring, skyfold door maintenance contracts, major systems, sinkholes, you name it, everything that's in maintenance that we contract out to cover the cost of the maintenance or cost of preventative maintenance, all of those contracts are going up. They just are, everywhere you turn. Of course, preventative maintenance itself for the aging buildings, we don't have the money from the city. We're not asking them to make that up in our operating fund, but we know those costs for those supplies and for those purchase services when we hire a plumber, electrician, those kinds of things, roofers for the roofs that are aging, they're costing more. They're asking for more per hour because they're having to cover more per hour for their employees, so they're passing it on to us just like everything else. We did move compensation down to purchase services for HES, so you will see that increase in the maintenance portion. And then we subtracted out of that some security equipment in security and safety. We moved that to equipment. We had some extra money in purchase services there. We moved it down to equipment to cover camera replacement for the buses and the radios. So we are repurposing that money from purchase services down to equipment. So you'll see that under the safety. In addition to that, transportation, the increased cost of McKinney-Vento and special ed students' transportation, again, those costs are going up. We're seeing that every week when we get those bills. And technology, the increased cost of technology installation contracts, when we're having to purchase services to contract those out, they're costing us more. And then we're in the process of looking at all of our stage lighting. We've had some inspections, we've had some equipment that needed to be replaced. We've had to have people come in to tell us those things and contract that. And so that's what you see there under AVL stage lighting. Dues and subscriptions went up $9,779. Travel and training went up, and I tell you it's across all programs. You'll see a small amount in each program. Travel used to cost 56 cents per mile. It's now 72.5 cents per mile. It's just the federal government sets that rate, and we're required to follow it. So you can see just that alone is quite a bit of money. Software increases. We've added the student ID software, new camera software, Canvas is partially in there. We put a placeholder for amount we think it's going to cost. We just don't know for sure what it's going to cost, but we wanted a placeholder in there in case it hits us so it doesn't hit us so hard. And then just software itself is the inflation cost of those alone. Just the financial software has gone up about $30,000 in the past 3 years. It's just every year it's going up. And then utilities, we use a rolling average to get that, so that is a minimal amount. Fuel went down. I was very surprised, but we had a year with fuel costs being low, so it affected the average. Vehicle parts, we're moving away from the city markup for vehicle parts. We're purchasing them ourselves as we need them, and so that's helping save some money there for them. Uniforms did go up, but what we're doing is providing T-shirts for trades, bus drivers, IT techs, so they're now recognizable in the building as our employees for safety purposes. Food for meetings, the school board decided not to have food at the second meeting, and then we had some decrease in some training meetings where they decided they had too much and they moved that money away from food. Equipment went up $900,000, but this is your phase into your middle school sports, as Dr. Gordon talked about. Some pre-K tables under the Virginia pre-K program, replacement copier for the print shop that's 7 years old and breaking down every month, and so they need a new one. That's, I think, $42,000. Camera replacements for the bus, which are much needed. Desktops for support staff that are end of life. School allocations went up by the Watchdog Dads program, or the Watchdogs program, sorry, I said that wrong. Turlington Woods, we increased the allocation there to help them. And regional tuition went up very minimally. And that went up because they're asking us to cover the cost of some other services that we used to bill them for. Materials and supplies went up $158,911. All of that's inflationary cost. Every cent of that has inflationary cost. And then other operational programs like professional learning, advertising, insurance, leases, and E-rate, the difference of all those is about $5,200. So that increase is $2.4 million. So the breakdown is $6.6 million for compensation and benefits and $2.4 million for operational costs to get to your $9 million.
Thank you, Ms. Forsman. So as Ms. Forsman was doing her part, that's when Ms. Gardner and Ms. Johnson gave you all the budget books. We wanted you all to pay attention to the story first, because I know once you get the book, you want to be able to flip through it. But at this point in time, we want to open it up to see if there's any questions here from the board. In my conversations with Chair McGee, we're going to follow the same format that we did last year. When you do have other questions that do pop up and occur, we would ask you all to send those questions to us by next Friday. And then we will take all of those questions along with the Ask a Budget questions that are on the website. We will post all of those at the March 12th meeting is what Mr. McGee requested that we do, but we also will put that on the website for our frequently asked questions. So at this time, we'll open it up to see if there's any questions from the board.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon. To the board, I'm going to ask if we could really that was a long presentation. We have the budget books. If we could just withhold questions this evening and develop those questions this week and have them submitted by March 6th, 5 p.m. to Dr. Gordon so he can get those answered. But great presentation, Dr. Gordon. Great presentation, Wendy. You painted the picture, you sold the story, so good job on that. Thank you.
Sir, thank you.
Good job, man. That's good. All right, moving on to new business. We only have one item. We have the comprehensive targeted school board, plan. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gordon at this time for that presentation.
Give me 1 second. Thank you, Mr. McGee. We have to have these 4 schools plans approved by the board for the schools that fell into comprehensive support or targeted support. Just as a quick overview, this is a review from the Virginia Department of Education's Division of Student Outcomes, School Quality, and the Office of School Improvement. This is part of the planning and prioritization, part of the school improvement process that is required from the Virginia Department of Education. It's a multi-year school support plan to improve student outcomes. This includes for newly identified comprehensive support schools and targeted support schools. Within these plans, you see the roles and responsibilities of specific staff members as outlined, including deadlines. This is a plan that we have included for school board approval for the work that already has begun for McBain Junior Elementary School, Hill Point Elementary School, Kilby Shores Elementary School, and Elephants Fork Elementary School.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon. Is there a motion or discussion?
Board Chair, I move that we approve these plans.
All right, motion on the floor by Vice Chair Howell to approve the plan, seconded by Board Member Jenkins. Any discussion?
I have one quick question, if I may.
Go ahead, Board Member Singleff.
Just looking over the plans that are here, is there any kind of goal that is stated on where we hope to be next year by implementing this? What kind of an increase or improvement? How will we know a year from now if the implementation of this has been effective?
I'm going to call Dr. Branch, our Chief Academic Officer, to the podium to give further insight into what I'm about to say. A couple of things that they always have target SOL scores that we're supposed to have that will also be measured by growth based on whatever that threshold may be. We will also know if we have done well because the schools will be listed as on track. Or distinguished. I'll give that goal as well. But Dr. Branch, you want to provide greater insight into Ms. Lingleff's question?
Yes, and good evening, school board. Ms. Lingleff, your question as Dr. Gordon stated, is inclusive of scores we will receive from the SOLs. And so, yes, there will be updates to how these measurable outcomes, which are stated in their SMART goals, have been implemented. We also have within the plans where there are milestones, and so there are checkpoints all the way through. If you start on page 13 of each of the plans, you will identify the start of the measurable outcomes based on their targets as well as their data. We had to use evidence-based indicators inclusive of our plans. And most of the strategies, in fact, all of the strategies came from the federal government's What Works Clearinghouse, which is done by the Institute of Educational Science. And so within those, there are strategies incorporated. And if you start again on page 13, you will go through all of the plans and identify the areas of milestones and the checkpoints, tests that are inclusive to include the intervention strategies that will be used to measure the outcomes.
Thank you, Dr. Branch. Board Member Slingloff, did that answer your question? Dr. Brittenham?
One of the questions that I have is that I see that we're looking at objectives year 1, year 2, year 3. Are there monthly goals that we are setting, that we're tracking, that could be reported back to the board so that we could also see the progress that's being made at each of these schools?
To answer you succinctly and to not appear as if we don't have monthly goals, yes, and is my response. Yes, we have monthly goals, but they are not just based on months. It depends on assessment data. Assessment data is not always given in a monthly format. For example, when we do VALS testing, that goes over the course of a month and a half, and so that data is not available. Oftentimes, if there's any data we have to submit to the state, it goes through our Pearson system. That data is not validated until after the conclusion of the testing period. So yes, and there are goals that we set, and those goals are not only quantitative, they are qualitative, like monthly meetings to include our professional learning communities, where we are looking at data. The buildings are looking directly at their data to see what type of interventions or strategies they are using that are working and how they're seeing growth and improvement in groups. It also allows us on a very frequent basis, like when we're using our STAR reading and math data, to make some instructional changes for grouping. Like if we're going to do flexible groups, if our students have slipped into a tier 2 status, tier 1 is general for everyone. But it allows us on a very regular basis at the building level, not just division, because every building has different processes that they're using based on their student demographics. Excuse me. And so, yes, and we do. The no is the school board would not receive a monthly report on those multiple strategies that are being used and the things that are being done, not on a monthly basis because assessments are not done monthly.
But there is a way to track the data sooner than when SOLs come around. We could see the data, the real-time data that you're working with in maybe longer than a month, maybe every 6 weeks, every 8 weeks, we would see what the results of the data say and how the progress is happening. And I'm really glad you included the Tier 1 instruction comment, because looking at what are in these support plans, do you have something in place to evaluate the Tier 1 instruction that's happening? And if it's not effective in certain groups, being able to pivot to something else so that you give students the most opportunity to get access to what they need in order to do well on their benchmark and SOL tests.
Absolutely. Each school has a metric as well as walkthroughs and observations that inform their Tier 1 instruction. When the building administrator, who is responsible for that and that administrative leadership team, when they're doing their walkthroughs, they're looking first for Tier 1 instruction. They may be specifically looking for if students are using their voice, if there's academic language that's consistent across the classroom, they may have a focus. And so at the building level, yes, there are tools that are implemented already, part of our evaluation system actually, that they are using to evaluate Tier 1 instruction. But Tier 1 instruction evaluation is not only at the student level, it actually begins at the teacher level. So in order to impact the students, you must have effective instruction. And if the Tier 1 instruction is not effective, that's when we bring in, based on the building administration's recommendations, we bring in additional supports, like my entire department. All 50 staff of my department can go out and service and support based on the targeted needs of a building.
And just to add to that, so Dr. Brittingham, you know, we take our SOL test in a little over 2 months. And so you all know, as a part of my evaluation, I always share with you all the data before it becomes official at the state level. So that would be the time, since testing is a little over 2 months, that you all will be able to see it in June.
Thank you, Dr. Brittingham. Any further? Anybody else? Dr. Branch, great job. I think, Dr. Warder, you said Dr. Branch put this plan together and built it, right?
Yes, Dr. Branch has been the overseer in contact. There were webinars they had to attend. There was checks and balances with the Office of School Quality. There was also to ensure that we were addressing any shortcomings. This has been really a 3 to 4 month process. And as I had shared with you, you know, there was transition to the Virginia Department of Education as well. The day that she brought it to me is the day that I had contacted you all, and the Department of Education gave us flexibility, gave several school divisions flexibility, because they had to wait until the next school board meeting for approval.
Thanks, Dr.
And
Branch.
I do want to add to that, Dr. Gordon. I, in my role as Chief Academic Officer, facilitate the processes, but I have to give credit where credit is due. These plans were done by the building administration. All of these schools are elementary schools, so led by Dr. Catherine Pichon, our Director of Elementary Leadership. All of her principals, all of their academic and leadership staff, as well as one of my coordinators, Dr. Marlo Jackson, the coordinator of academic and intervention supports, as well as our coordinator of compensatory programs, who handles all the budget workbooks and making sure our spending is done in collaboration with our budget and finance department, Ms. Jennifer Connor. So it is me, but it's not just me. We work in a collaborative spirit.
That's awesome. Thanks, Dr. Branch.
Thank
And
you.
please pass on from the board. Great job, and we really appreciate all of y'all. All right, so the motion on the floor is to approve the plan. We're finished with discussion. Madam Clerk, we're ready to vote.
Board members, please vote. Board Member Dr. Brittingham.
Yes.
Board Member Fields.
Yes.
Board Member Jenkins.
Yes.
Board Member Riddick.
Yes.
Board Member Slingloff.
Yes.
Vice Chair Howell.
Yes.
Board Chair McGee.
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right, next item, we need a motion to go into closed session.
Motion is needed to go into a closed meeting to discuss the following item and subject pursuant to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, found at Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711, the discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, including interviewing selected offerors and discussing terms and scope of a contract to provide services for a forensic audit pursuant to RFP 1910-P, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining or negotiating strategy of the public body, which is authorized by the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, found at Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A29.
Board Chair, I move we go into closed session.
Second.
All right, motion was made by Vice Chair Howell, seconded by Board Member Slingloff. Any discussion? Being none, Madam Clerk?
Board members, please vote. Board Member Dr. Brittingham.
Yes.
Board Member Fields.
Yes.
Board Member Jenkins. Board Member Riddick. Yes. Board Member Slingloff.
Yes.
Vice Chair Howell.
Yes.
Board Chair McGee.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thanks, and a reminder to board members, please leave all personal electronics out, and for the folks watching at home, we're probably going to be back in the rear for at least a couple of hours, so once we get finished, we'll come back out. Thanks. See you guys in the rear. Call this meeting back in order. We need to certify the closed meeting.
Resolution of certification of the closed meeting of February the 26th, 2026 pursuant to Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia. Whereas the School Board of the City of Suffolk convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law, now therefore be it resolved that the School Board of the City of Suffolk hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, number one, only business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this resolution of certification applies. And number two, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the School Board of the City of Suffolk.
Is there a motion?
Board Chair, I move to certify the results.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made by the Vice Chair to certify, seconded by Board Member Slingleth. Any discussion? Being none, Madam Clerk.
Board members, please vote. Board Member Dr. Brittingham.
Yes.
Board Member Fields.
Yes.
Board Member Jenkins.
Yes.
Board Member Riddick. Board Member Slinglove.
Yes.
Vice Chair Howell.
Yes.
Board Chair McGee.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Just want to highlight item 1 under info, audio video recommendation for school board meetings. That's for Kings Fork. Please take a look at that. That's going to be an action item on our March 12th meeting. And then, again, want to give condolences to Stephen Wood, social studies teacher who retired, 29 years of service, passed away on February 15th of 2026. All right, this meeting is adjourned. Have a good evening.